You're listening to Were You Still Talking? So, welcome back to the podcast. Today in my studio, I have Jeff Johnston. He is my biggest guest to date. He is nearly, he's 6'6", and probably a little over 200 pounds, yes?
A little, yeah.
A little. And Jeff is an executive producer on the most popular... Yes?
Okay. No. Well, technically, the executive producer is Joe Moniz. I am the host of the show, and I'm an associate. I'm an associate producer and host.
Oh, okay. Associate producer and host. I thought I saw executive producer on the website. I was just going by what I saw up there. So good. Enough of the introduction. I'll just get right into it. So the Rollin On TV. That's what we're talking about. I hadn't got to that yet. Jeff is the host and co-executive producer?
I'm an associate
producer. And that was my big question. How do you do the show without a producer?
Well, that's Joe. Joe is the
executive producer.
By producer, you mean the guy who would be with me when I'm in the field, who makes sure that everything happens?
I have no idea. I see executive producer and producer. And he could have called himself a producer, right?
Well, yeah. We have very distinctly defined jobs we do. Mm-hmm. I mean, Joe handles the calling the stations and getting our distribution going and working with advertisers and such. I mainly am responsible for content.
Okay.
I film segments, I edit them, send them off to our editor who's in South Bend, Indiana. And Joe is back near in a little town called Mattapoisett, just south of Boston, near Cape Cod. And so we're all spread all over the place. But it's a very small crew. I do a lot of things by myself. I mean, one-man band type shooting. And so it's once in a while, Joe and I are together at a big trade show or something, and then we have a producer on hand who can say, don't forget to do this. Otherwise, it's just me trying to not forget.
Okay, so that's what I wondered. That was one of my first questions is almost all of the stuff is really just yourself. You don't have an assistant, or sometimes have an assistant.
Yeah, I have an assistant. Marv Leake helps me shoot on this a lot. He does a lot of the shooting, and of course, he's had a lot of experience, so he can look at me and say, your collar is turned under, or whatever, or get the energy up. Try and act like you're not half asleep. And
that's always helpful. It's nice. I mean, it's helpful to have someone say that.
Well, I get dueling advice on this because some of the young people in my family say, Uncle Jeff, it would really help if you would take a couple of shots of espresso before you start talking on camera to get energy up. Okay. And the other one says, Uncle Jeff, maybe if you had a couple of shots of whiskey, you could kind of relax and be a little more easy. So I'm trying to figure out how to get my dueling nerve endings going on that.
Well, I think that's the answer. You have a couple of shots of espresso and then a couple of shots of whiskey.
Oh, okay.
And maybe you'll be right in the right spot.
In the middle, yeah.
You have to make sure it's the right brand of whiskey, though. And then you've got another sponsor.
Yeah.
Or two.
Well, I've never planned on being on camera. This is strictly accidental.
Oh, interesting.
As opposed to the other things that I enjoy doing on film production. I mean, the lighting and grip work and camera, of course, and even editing. It's all great fun. Mm-hmm. But being in front of the camera was never on that list. So this was strictly accidental. When I first got involved in the show, and I heard Joe was going to be doing it, I contacted him and thought maybe I could write content for the host and help guide content for different subject matters on a given show, so you have a good mix of editorial and destinations and so on. Mm-hmm. And I wound up doing a couple of stand-up segments at a trade show, and one thing leads to another, and here I am. So I wind up being the face of the show, whether people like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. You're a good face to have on there. And it's so interesting because it's kind of unique, I think. You want to do the really hard work instead of the easy part about being a host, because, and now you're combining it, so you're doing all the work. But if you're just the host, that's the easy job. Doing all the behind the scenes stuff, that's work.
That's what people tell me is that, why do they pay actors so much? They're just standing and talking.
Exactly.
No, they're not. They have all this experience and training. I am really envious of the people who get up there on the shows that do, get on camera and make it look natural and smooth every day, every time. And that has given me a whole new respect for that part of the business, especially since I have to do that now. And I get up there and hope I can get all the way through something without stumbling or being an idiot,
That's always amazed me. Television hosts who I sometimes not really actors, because I've seen them try and act before, and sometimes they're not very good, but they're awfully good at their job. I can't imagine doing that, like you say. Not only are they doing it every day, but they are live. It's like they make a mistake. Nowadays, it's on YouTube everywhere,
and they may have that teleprompter out there, but even reading from the teleprompter takes something to make you not look like you're reading from a teleprompter.
True, and it's a skill in itself, because not only do you have to, is it good if you don't look like you're reading from a teleprompter, but it's also good if you have to really be good at reading, because you got to read, you got to get ahead of that thing and just
the good thing is
and
now,
pronounce words and things like that.
Well, yeah, the good thing now is that we have these gigantic 55-inch televisions.
Right.
So when they have the little teleprompter that's a 13-inch screen that's on the camera that's 10, 12 feet away from you, and you're reading that, they can also have it on this 55-inch television right next to it. So the giant
it's
words
easier.
are going by there, and as I get older, I'm appreciating that sort of aid for my eyes.
More. Yeah, and I've always been, occasionally they show too much on like the Today Show or something, and you see that every word they're saying is from the teleprompter.
Yeah.
Every little casual, so back to you, and how was your day yesterday? It was all on the teleprompter. They're not ad-libbing anything, which is even more amazing in a way. Cause,
makes them look like they're really, really good at this casual chatter stuff.
Right.
And the only real teleprompter work I do is our annual RV of the Year show that we do back in South Bend, where we look at the top 5 finishers based on a variety of judges, typically RV Business Magazine, and us go through and find the top 5, and then we have a RV of the Year. And that's all done with the typical multi-camera production in a facility in Elkhart, Indiana, at the RV Hall of Fame and Expo Hall. And I did that 2 years, and that was reading off a teleprompter along with a young lady who is a local television personality. So she's on the news, and she does reporting for the football games and such. So she's really good at it.
She's kind of used to it.
And I'm the block of wood. And
that's really that's nerve-wracking. I can't imagine.
You just try, and the director keeps coming over and say, Jeff, relax a little, relax. A little more energy, and I'm reading this stuff on the teleprompter and trying to, make it sound like good, normal, everyday, non-scripted stuff.
And have they offered you a shot of coffee or a shot of whiskey? Because
Well, I may have a hip flask stashed in my camera bag most of the time, so I'm ready in case it's needed. Yes, yeah.
This is interesting, and you've done this basically your whole career. You've worked in automotive magazines and now an automotive show.
Yeah, well, I started accidentally writing for some of the four-wheel drive magazines. My first published article was November of 1979, I believe, and then my first staff job was February of 1982, and I remember that because my birthday is the end of February, and I was moving from Oregon down to Orange County, California on my birthday, which is was a great way, driving a Jeep with a trailer behind it down I-5, 18 hours of white knuckle.
Oh my gosh!
But anyway, that was the start of my automotive journalism career. And for the first X number of years, it was all writing for magazines. And then now it has transitioned to doing the same thing, only for a television show. So it's the same kind of content, but just visual instead.
So you had lots of experience writing segments, and I mean, how big a transition was it? And how big a difference was it to write for yourself eventually, and then writing segments for the camera?
Well, it wasn't bad, except that it wasn't that bad of a transition, because for 20 some odd years, almost 30 years, I was writing stories for magazines that had a beginning and a middle and an end, and you had, because of time or space constraints in magazines, this is before the online era when you got room for everything.
Oh, right, right.
In a magazine, you have a certain number of column inches or a certain number of word counts, so you had to learn to write to that word count to keep it kind of tight. And that's exactly what I do on the air. You want to give all the information, but it's also entertainment, so you keep it, you try to keep the verbiage to a minimum and let the pictures tell the story as much as possible. So it was a little shift in thinking, but I seem to have pulled it off, I think.
It looks like you have.
Well,
I admit I don't watch the show every day, but I did some research, which is something I don't do for this show. But since you had a lot of material to look at, I decided I would look at some stuff. And it's very creative, which doesn't surprise me, because I've seen your work on short film, in the short film community in Eugene, or the film community around Eugene and stuff, which is how I know you, which is partly why I wanted to have you on here, because I think that the fact that you do that stuff, as fun as it is for you, it's still work that you're doing for people on a volunteer basis and helping them get started in film. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, a lot of it is volunteer. I mean, I have helped out people, and then when I need something help on a project, I can call on people, call in favors, so to speak.
Right. Right.
But I also, of course, do paid work for audio for TV commercials or lighting. I've been the lighting director for a couple of different independent feature-length films, that sort of thing. And that's regular paid gigs. And but the volunteer stuff, it's fun. I mean, at low pressure, because it's, you're fired. Oh, yeah?
Okay,
so,
whatever.
Okay.
Well, I met you through doing a project that I assume you were getting paid for, and it was a big relief to see your face. You and your
you mean the Eater, the science
Eater,
fiction,
the Eater? Yes, that was a huge benefit when you guys came on set, and that was an interesting project, as many of the smaller ones are. It was, and then I showed up to another project that I was just on for the day. But I was so relieved to see you there, because I okay, that's taken care of.
Well, thank you. That's that's a very flattering. Thank you. But that's one of the things with people in Portland that I've worked with in the various levels of the professional film community up there. And that's one of the fun things about working on a project in general, is if you can get together with people that that you have worked with before, you don't have to go through that learning phase. You just, he's here, he knows how to do these things, move on with something else. And that's kind of nice to be dependent on like that.
It's great, yeah. And it's extremely helpful.
Or to be dependable, I guess.
Or to be dependable, yeah. Like, I knew you would show up 10 to 15 minutes early, and sure enough, you were here. I was almost ready. So,
well, it's close enough. Not like I got any appointments today.
So one of my questions was your crew. You already answered that. How long does it typically take to shoot a show? I think I read that you do, somewhere I read you do, 20 shows a season? Is that right?
We have a 6-show schedule. We do 6 new shows, and then 6 weeks of repeats, and then 6 more.
Oh, I see.
And we have Joe works on segments back typically on the East Coast places, and then we also have the company called Pentavision that is a production company in South Bend, Indiana. Robin, one of the staff there, does our editing for the show. I mean, I edit my own segments, and I send him and then the material, and then he adds the official lower thirds, credits, and so on.
Oh, okay.
As far as how long it takes, I mean, I'm not responsible for all the content for each show, obviously. I do my segments. I do my, a 14-minute segment on a truck and trailer, for example, or product review, or I'll do a little, 30-second segment on a tech tip. So we do a little bit of everything, a lot of segments that are different lengths. So when Joe is putting these together in the editing suite, he can have, if he has a blank minute and a half, he can find something I've done that's a minute and a half long and plug it in there. And
I see.
Yeah. So, right. Phil, because sometimes they don't always run a set length.
Right.
Although I tend to edit my major segments to like a 14-minute length with a break in the middle for the commercials at the 7-minute point or something like that. And that, it takes a little bit of time to do these, but frankly, we're a short staff. We're a small crew, so we tend to push things through pretty quick.
Right. And how you have a whole truckload of equipment, and I guess it shows. It shows in the show. Well, we were talking about what you drive now. You drive a 2004 Nissan Crew Cab.
It's a Frontier.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was looking for, and that in a trailer, and you pretty much take all your gear.
Well, when you see those pictures of my truck that looks like the Beverly Hillbillies going to a film set with all the gear piled on, that's usually for a gig like a lighting or audio or grip gig.
Oh, I see.
When I'm doing things for our show, it's usually pretty lightweight. We'll typically have just camera and tripod and maybe an auxiliary light. Depending on if I'm doing just a stand-up in front of a product and I just want to punch my face up a little bit with light. But when we do something that's going to involve a nighttime scene around a campfire, for example, I take enough battery-operated LED lights, which are, they're a godsend.
Yeah,
they're the best
are.
thing that's ever happened for this kind of work, because I get 2.5 or 3 hours out of a light charge, and that's plenty of time. But I take extra lighting gear if I know I'm going to be shooting at night and I need to light up the campfire and the RV and maybe the trees in the background a little bit. It varies, but it's never quite as much as those pictures you see with all that stuff piled on there.
Right. No.
That's way too much work.
No kidding. So you did you know Joe and he hired you to do the show, or you guys kind of started it together, or
no? I saw a press release he put out.
Okay.
Joe had a show for about 10 years called Boating Today TV, and it was all about the boating industry. Everything from lightweight, inflatable, professional grade inflatable canoe powered boats, or not canoe, but raft type inflatable boats, all the way up to the offshore racing boats. I think they call them cigarette boats sometimes.
Oh, right.
Or giant houseboats. I mean, they covered pretty much everything to do with boating. And it was the same kind of show. enthusiasts, events. They spent a lot of time down at the British Virgin Islands in the Caribbean, because they had quite a few boating get-togethers, regattas or whatever they call them down there. And that show pretty much went away with the recession back around 2006 or 7. When people stopped spending money due to a recession, first thing to go is boats, then motorcycles, then RVs. And the boat industry took a huge tank back then, and he lost all of his advertisers and sponsors, so the show had to shut down. And then a little bit later, he decided to give it a try in the RV business, because RVs were able to rebound a little more quickly. So he put a press release out that he was doing this show. I contacted him about that, and as they say, the rest is history.
The rest is history, and it's grown.
I wrote to him, and I said I've been in the industry a long time, and I could, provide the scripting and so on.
Oh, okay.
And like I say, then one thing led to another, and here I am.
And did you live in Oregon at that time, or California?
I was up here.
You were up here.
Yeah.
So what brought you back to Eugene?
Specifically, I met and married a very wonderful lady named Pam, who I was living in Ventura, California at the time, which is where my magazine headquarter office was. And I met Pam, and she was living in Eugene, which was really handy. And one thing led to another. I moved back up here and married her eventually. But
okay, that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. So I grew up in Oregon City and the Portland areas. So this is close enough. As long as I'm back in Oregon, that was what counted.
Oh, okay.
And after wandering around to Southern California, Indiana, back to Southern California for I was gone about 21 years roughly. And now that I'm back, I don't think anything would dynamite me out of here.
This is it.
This is
a good spot.
Yeah.
And you have a parrot to take care of. It's a parrot, right?
Yeah, Barlow. Yeah.
Barlow.
Yeah.
How old's Barlow?
About 18 or 19 years old.
I'm asking these questions for my girlfriend now.
Oh, okay. Okay. He's fairly young still. Yeah,
that is young.
Yeah, he'll live to 60s or 70s.
Right.
He will. When I'm laying there in my coffin or my box of ash, as the case may be, she will be on a perch. Okay, who's next?
Right. Exactly. Well, I understand people are given their parrots in their wills and finding a place for them. And
well,
that's
that's still a challenge. We have a will. A certain amount of money allotted in the will for her care, but none of my family members are bird people. We do have a shop down here in Eugene that we work through where Barlow babysits when we're gone on a trip, but we don't have an immediate successor to take her yet.
Well, having someone to babysit her is extremely helpful.
Yeah. Well, Colleen's Bird Shop down on River Road, and she does bird sitting and breeding of and bird supplies and all that. So we take her down to Aunt Carlene's place, and she hangs out there for a few days and learns new things to say from her buddies in the cages next to her. And it's kind of fun. It's a good spot for her. We trust her down there.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that's great to have the place like that. We have a pet bird, but it doesn't have a cage. We have a scrub jay.
Oh, okay.
That Heidi started feeding and said,
"Oh, yeah, outside, yeah. I've seen those on the pictures and such. Yeah,
he's comes here all the time now and wants to get on our shoulder and our arm and all these different things. So 8 seasons. It seems like the show is really kind of exploding.
Yeah, it is. We have made recently tremendous progress in our distribution. Because we are a syndicated show, we don't run on any one channel like Discovery, which would make it awfully easy to tell anyone in the country watch us on Discovery. But because we're syndicated, we're carried by a variety of outlets. Here in Eugene, for example, it's Fox Channel 4, usually at noon on Sunday. And elsewhere in the country, we'll have a distributor on the East Coast, like Cox Sports, that handles a number of East Coast states, or we'll have individual stations in different places, like up in Seattle. But so it's a variety of outlets. And because of the growing importance of streaming media, we are now also getting hooked up with streaming media. And we have a media and promotion lady named Michelle Fontaine, who is our social media lady, and she's the one who has gotten us hooked up with Roku. So we're on a Roku channel. Right. We are now also on one of the Amazon streaming services, and initially we had about 42 million households that we reached nationwide. Wow. I don't know how many are watching
Seems like
it,
a lot.
But that's how many that's the reach with all the distributors. Now, Roku has 27 million subscribers, and Apple is somewhere around 30-some, I believe, million subscribers. And I'm not Apple, but Amazon. But next, we are also working on getting on Apple, and on Apple TV.
Right, and, so you can do that? You can be on Amazon and Apple?
Oh, yeah.
They'll let you do that?
Apparently.
I've never been sure about that.
Well, I don't either. Michelle is our expert in all those things.
She knows all of it, yeah.
And so she handles it and tells us, hey, here's the latest news of what we're doing, which is great.
Well, and you also have a decent-sized YouTube channel. I mean, that is... That's a hard thing to accomplish.
Well,
but,
we have YouTube, and we are also on Vimeo with some of our material. And I think we put it up in both places, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, from what I understand, YouTube bought Vimeo because they didn't like the competition. But I'm not 100% sure about that.
I don't know. Well, a while back...
well, it would be Google, wouldn't it?
Well, a while back, when our show started 8 years ago, we had... there were some choices made about music that was used on our show, and we used royalty-free. I mean, we used music that we bought for on a royalty basis, whatever. And apparently, the company that supplied that music then decided to was purchased by another company, and the other company said, "Oh, wait a minute! All these people that are using our music can't do that anymore unless they pay us again."
Oh.
And one thing led to another, so we lost a bunch of our material that was on YouTube, and we re-edited it with different music or shifted it over to Vimeo, and now everything is fine.
Oh,
so
I see. What a pain in the butt, though.
It was.
Man.
It was. But,
I guess that
the
agreement
music
wasn't strong enough.
But the music that we're using now is all completely. I mean, it's all good stuff. We have access to it, and it's not going to be any questions about royalties. So, at least that's one thing we won't have to worry about. And of all the mistakes that I can make when I'm shooting things, the last thing I want to worry about is the music down at the other end.
Well, yeah, and I guess you don't really have to.
Yeah.
So you've been doing RVing, though. You said you started camping with your dad in a tent.
Well,
when you were a kid.
Well, our family had a tent, and then they bought an old, I think it was a 1958 Red Dale or Red Ball trailer, a little canned ham, as they were called, like 15 feet long. Mm-hmm. We went camping with our family with 3 kids and my mom and dad. And, why that many people don't kill each other in a space that small, I don't know.
Well, all we had was tents, and we survived.
Yeah, but we used that trailer quite a bit, so I guess that was my official introduction to the RVing community. Mm-hmm. And then after that, nothing really happened until October of 1985, when I was hired by TL Enterprises, which published Trailer Life magazine and Motorhome magazine. And that's when I was dumped into it more or less, feet first, jump right in and get started. So
okay.
That was the beginning of it. And so it's been, most of my automotive journalism has been about RVs since then. It's an area of expertise.
And so, do you own an RV?
Not yet.
Not yet, but you take them out to try them out sometimes, right?
A big part of my job at the magazines was road testing and writing about and photographing new RVs. So every month I would be out in at least one, sometimes 2. Quite often it was a trailer product for Trailer Life and a motorhome for Motorhome magazine. Sometimes I would take one each out per month, and that went on for the 18 years that I was on staff there.
Wow!
And then after that, I came back up to Oregon, and I was a freelance I was a field staffer with them for a while, and now I'm strictly freelance with them. But that, as a result, I've been in just about every kind of an RV, from a fold-down tent trailer to a 42-foot marathon executive coach.
Oh wow!
Or Monaco executive coach, and so it has provided a huge background, I guess, or a depth of experience along those lines.
Yeah.
And
would you take an RV out for an overnight, or you just?
Oh yeah. You
got to take them out to film them.
Going out, shooting the photos, going out and living in them for a few days on an adventure sometime, and occasionally I would. Be able to, if I was going on a family vacation, I could arrange for a longer loan period.
Oh, nice!
And, over a week or so. And the best trip that I ever did back then was going up to Alaska, because driving to Alaska is the last great ultimate adventure for a lot of RVers. And we drove from Elkhart, Indiana, to Seattle, and then up the Alaska Highway to Anchorage and thereabouts. And that was 1997 when Ford was introducing the Expedition model. It was their first time that they had a full-size SUV like that.
Oh, wow.
So we towed a trailer, a Holiday Rambler, with twin beds, thanks a lot, for all the way up there to Alaska. And And that was a quite a lengthy trip, but that's the kind of fun things that have been possible with this job.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I've been extremely blessed in that I'm one of those people that can get up on a Monday morning and be going to work and be really glad that I'm doing it. I've never once regretted getting up in the morning to go to work or to get busy with projects. And it's not a lot of people can say that, unfortunately. There's a lot of people for whom jobs are just jobs.
I just heard a kind of a scary statistic, but it reminded me of myself that only something like 13% of people like their job.
Wow.
And in America.
Yeah.
And it doesn't surprise me because I know very few people that like their job, and it's kind of the fun of having a podcast. You can find those people and talk to them and see what that experience is like. And I mean, you've been in the same career for your entire career, and so that's been you're very lucky, but you also work very hard. I know that.
Well,
I've worked with you.
It's hard work when you're involved in some of the projects. They're really, really involved. But but even at that, even when you're working like on an independent film where you got hours of work every day and a lot of overnight shoots where you get to the location around sunset and you set up and then you're breaking things down in the morning as the sun is coming up again, days like that get a little bit tough sometimes. But the fun thing is the one project I did, a film called Bad Exorcists, I was the oldest guy on the crew by 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I was 60 years old at the time. Mm-hmm. The next oldest guy was the sound guy who turned 40 during that, and the rest of them were basically college graduate and 20s, kind of age people. And at the end of a long night like that, when I would feel a little bit dragging, the young guys were also dragging. So it wasn't just the old guy.
So yeah.
So that made me feel good. Okay, well, we're all in the same. A lot. We're in the same boat. Yes.
Yeah. I'm often the oldest person on a set when I show up. It's just the nature of the industry.
Yeah.
But I can't let it bother me too much.
Some of the actors that we had coming and going for a day or two on there would show up, and they'd be older guys, and they'd come over and talk to me, and they'd say, "Well, I'm glad I'm not the only gray hair on the set here."
That's why it's good to do plays occasionally, because then there's some older people, at least my age, involved, at least. So I'll try and do that again one day. So a side note for anyone who does want to start a podcast, I'll do my little how to make a podcast bit. It's a good idea to get guests like Jeff if you can, because Jeff is an experienced broadcaster and he does this all day long, and he's answered about 3 of my questions without me having to ask them at all. So it's really handy. No, that's what I want. Asking questions is boring. Having a conversation, that's a lot more interesting. So back to where I was, which I have no idea where I was. We were actually asking. You told me one of your favorite trips was Alaska, and is there any other ones that really stand out, or just recent trips you've done that have been really amazing?
Well, we really, as much as I enjoy and love Oregon and the Northwest, Michigan's Upper Peninsula is also very dear to our hearts. Mm-hmm. And because Elkhart, Indiana is right down on the Michigan-Indiana border, roughly center of the state, when we go back for any kind of a business trip to Elkhart, because it's Detroit of the RV business, we sometimes will get a loaner vehicle like a small motorhome and make a trip to the UP. And we love going to the Upper Peninsula. The people, the food, the scenery, everything up there is wonderful. So we get up there any chance we get. Mm-hmm. And then, it's other occasional trips, like driving down to Death Valley a few years ago, following one of these wet years when they have the flower blooms in the spring.
Right.
Now and then that happens in a monumental way. Uh-huh. And we went down there on one of those trips, for example. And springtime in Death Valley, when it's still 98 degrees at 11 o'clock at night, when you're sitting out there in the lawn chair and the warm breeze is blowing, and you're, okay, when are things going to cool down again? Oh, yeah, we walk over to the bar, and then they cool down. But
that's about it.
Anyway, so, Death Valley, I mean, anything here in the Northwest has been great. We do trips down to Pam has family in Sacramento, so we go there, and then we go up to the Sierra Mountains from there. Generally speaking, they're all great adventures. Or Maine, we did a trip up to Maine back in 2005, driving a hybrid Dodge Chrysler Aspen, which is their Durango full-size vehicle. We drove up there, and we had a few extra days to go up and hang around near Mount Katahdin and watch the snapping turtles laying eggs in a grassy spot next to a river, and just all the cool things, and watching the professional photographers shooting a pileated woodpecker coming to feed its babies in a nest in a tree that was right next to a gas station and bait shop.
Oh, cool.
They had a big crowd of all these guys with the vests and the big cameras on tripods, and they're right next to a parking lot at the gas station. You say, well, what are these outdoor ruggedy sort of guys looking at? And I went, and they said, well, there's a hole up there with 3 babies in it, and we're waiting for the mother to come back to feed them. And they'd been out tromping in the woods and couldn't find what they wanted, but here it is next to the gas station.
But there it is, right by the gas station.
So, that's typically Maine, typical Maine stuff. But, just anywhere in the country. Funny. I mean, there's so many great things to see and do in this country alone. That you don't have to go overseas for every adventure. There's a lot you can do here.
Speaking of overseas, I understand. I think I've seen several of trips you've taken to Hawaii.
Well, we have family over there.
Oh, you have family over there. Okay, because I almost consider that overseas when I go there. It's a very different place.
Typically, when we go on a trip like that, I attempt to work RV matters into what we're doing there. So I looked around. We were on the Big Island, where I have a family member who last summer was standing out by her mailbox taking pictures of the lava from that eruption flowing about a half mile from the house down to the sea.
Oh, so she lives on the
Big Island in the area called Pahoa.
Pahoa.
Yeah.
She lives in the Pahoa. Oh, yeah. Wow,
and,
that was amazing. Scary for some.
It was.
Yeah.
She kept bags packed by the door. I looked around to see what RV stuff goes on in Hawaii, and on the Big Island there's none. I mean, there are campgrounds for people who backpack or something, but there's no RVs, RV parks, anything like that. So I
didn't realize that. I thought people RV'd now on all the islands.
Up on Maui and Kauai, there are little motorhome rentals and such up there, but not on the Big Island, which was okay. That meant I got to leave the camera at home. But while we were there, just in case any RVers are visiting, we went and shot a feature at a very small brewery called Mahana Nui Brewery. That was there in Hilo.
In Hilo.
And so we did a little destination. Here's a cool place to stop if you happen to be visiting. And we put that on the air. So,
that's okay. I got some work in.
Little something out of the trip, yeah.
The Big Island is one of our favorite places. We have dreams of moving there one day. But
oh, boy.
As you might know,
there's some really cheap real estate right now, but it's covered by about 20 feet of hardening lava.
Well, there's quite a bit right next to it as well. People are ready to sell their houses all of a sudden. I don't quite understand it. It stopped erupting.
Yeah.
What's the problem?
Yeah, it stopped erupting today, or last summer. But
last summer, which was very interesting. Heidi and I watched it with. We were enthusiastically watched it day and night. All kinds of people putting, their own videos up. And
Ken Boyer was one of the guys in Hilo he lived in Volcano, the town of Volcano, which is right near the volcano itself, and he was out there every day shooting stuff,
right,
and doing live feeds. And I mean, it started with him down in the Leilani Estates, saying, "Folks, there's a giant crack in the road here." And we've got sulfur smell coming out of this crack in the road, and this is happening right now. And from there, it progressed.
Got bigger and bigger.
One thing led to another. And I'm looking forward to getting back over there again to visit the area and see what it's like, I guess.
And luckily, maybe take a camera.
The lava missed Uncle Robert's, which is good. Uncle Robert's is a venue down on the coast that is a music and kind of like a Saturday market here.
Oh, okay.
Only it's a guy's like private property, and it is a fantastic place to visit. It's like nothing else that I've been to anywhere else. Music and food and vendors and all that good stuff. And it's a great place to visit. I mean, it's a real fun part of the Pahoa experience, so to speak.
Yeah, I really am dying to get back over there because I want to see. I mean, the island is completely different from the last time we were there over 2 years ago, and it's the first time in what is it, 20, 30 years or something that there's been no eruption happening from that volcano.
Well, yeah.
It started in 84, I think it was.
It got pretty quiet right now.
Yeah, so right now it's technically not erupting. No lava's coming out of the ground. And it's not done that for a long, long time.
But it's hard to say when that's going to happen again.
Well, it could have happened while I'm doing the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
you never know.
And boy, the people that live there just buying the insurance that they need now. I mean, general household insurance, let alone fire and lava insurance, is like it's like buying earthquake insurance when you live in Ridgecrest, California.
Right. I actually heard soon after the eruption that you could not insure a house, but maybe that might have just meant new homes, trying to build a new home.
Well, Lloyd's of London will insure anything for you.
I guess that's true.
A large enough checkbook, and they are the ones that are carrying a lot of the Hawaii eruption-related insurance for people for residences.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. Boy,
yeah, that's a pretty big risk.
Yes, yeah,
pretty big risk. I mean, you would think someone would have the wherewithal to start a RV park there, because then you could just get
but there are no RVs there. But the thing is, there are no RVs. Well, actually, there are some RVs over in Kona, and they're owned by a company that rents them out to movie production companies. But they're not privately owned. Because I've never been someplace where I've driven all around the island, and we've driven all over the place over there. We've been there twice now, and you don't see any RVs at all on the road. And that's
I never thought about it.
That's really unusual.
It's very unusual. Is there a reason for it? Like, is there a regulation about them, or do people just?
I don't think so. It just never happened.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's peculiar, because I know there's a ton of camping. I mean, there's actually a camping community that people kind of live at camp, skip around to campgrounds.
Yeah.
So I always assumed they were in their RVs, but I guess not.
Well, for me, it's kind of nice because it means I can go someplace where I don't have to be thinking about doing something for the show. I can just relax and sit on the lanai and listen to those little, I don't know what they, call those frogs.
Kukui?
What?
Kukui, I think it is.
Okay.
Kukui or hui? I think it's kukui frogs.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you sit there and these things are going on, and it's kind of nice. It's not a bad way to go.
Because people are like, oh, the frogs are terrible, and I think, no, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I could go to sleep listening, the window open, listening to them, and sit out on the lanai. They don't prevent people from having conversations or listening to music. They're just background.
They're just this background. I mean, and people get apps for their phone with those kind of sounds.
Yeah,
so they can fall asleep.
I still have a video someplace on my phone that I've recorded. I just turned the phone on for a minute or two, listening to them. Just to listen to that once in a while and have a cold beer and listen to the frogs and think, I remember I was sitting on the deck there.
Oh, that's a nice way to way to bring you back. Absolutely. Yeah. And so do you do any water sports? Do you snorkel or get on a board or anything like that?
Over there we snorkel.
Over there,
yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Because not here.
I don't do the stand-up paddleboard thing or surfboards. I don't get along well with limited friction surface sports.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I've never done any water skiing or snow skiing or roller skating, ice skating. I tried ice skating once, and it was a disaster. Plus, my smart-ass niece was at the other end of the ice skating rink with a video camera on a tripod, having a huge laugh over me sprawling around out there.
I like ice skating. I've never. Snow skiing I've never done for two reasons. One, it always seemed expensive, although it's not too bad. But also, I've always been just convinced that I would kill myself because I really like speed. So I just thought, there's no way I'm going to hold back.
I have avoided any broken bones so far in my life.
That's amazing.
Well, I just recently had a little minor operation on my face to take out a little spot, and they put 9 stitches in there. And when I told the gal, she said, I'm guessing you know what to do with stitches. And I said, no, this is the first time that I've ever had stitches at 65 years old. And she stopped what she was doing and looked at me. She says, really? Nothing? She said, what, did your mom keep you locked up in a padded room when you were a little boy? No, I just was lucky, I guess.
Me too. I've never had stitches.
So no stitches. I mean, but that's never. It's like the things that I can add to my list of things I've done since I was 65 years old.
And you got stitches.
And I never. One of the things that I will not be doing is any of the the limited friction surface things.
Right.
We tried taking stand-up paddleboard classes, for example. And,
didn't work.
Well, Pam jumps up on the darn thing and takes off, and she does great, as do other friends of ours. But I guess partly it's my height, maybe, but I just can't get the balance thing going. So long as if I can sit down on a kayak, that's fine.
Yeah,
it's like
that's a lot easier. Kayaking's nice too.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to paddleboard, but I've been a cheapskate about it. And basically, I look at the hourly fee, and I think, really?
Well,
I like snorkeling. I got my snorkel gear.
Here in Eugene, the outdoor recreation area offers classes that are really inexpensive.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be the way to go.
Yeah, they have paddleboarding and kayaking and different types of classes, and that's where we tried taking the classes. And we did it there and another place too, and I just can't do it.
It's funny. I don't even think about paddleboarding here because there's no turtles to look at.
No, okay.
So I don't know. I just never think about it. But I'm sure it would be fun here too.
Yeah.
It would be absolutely fun. And it's something I don't get in the ocean in Oregon because that is just far too cold. That's one of the reasons I love Hawaii. Yeah, if you don't mind, or wearing a wetsuit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would like to learn to dive, and I would learn to dive in Oregon, and just because I've heard that if you learn here, you can dive anywhere because this is a challenging ocean.
Okay, yeah.
But the whole reason we love Hawaii is that you can get in warm salt water. I mean, even in Southern California, it's still 60 degrees, which is awfully cold.
Yeah.
But over there, to me, that's the paradise, is to be able to float around and look at fish and have turtles come sniff you. And
the deepest I've ever been in the Pacific Ocean is about not quite knee deep.
Oh, yeah.
When you're out on a camping trip and you have a milk crate full of dirty dishes and you walk out there not quite knee deep in the water and you use the sand to kind of clean the dishes and rinse them off and you carry them back. And by the time you're out there for 15, 20 minutes, that's enough. And your feet are frozen and you can't feel your legs anymore. And then you see just down the beach the kids out there, running out, splashing, swimming, carrying on.
Yep.
They must not have any nerves.
Well, and honestly, when I was a kid, I jumped in a few times. I didn't spend a lot of time in the ocean, but I would jump in and try and body surf and stuff. And I don't remember even thinking about it being cold because I don't think I got cold till I was over 20.
Well,
I just don't remember that.
I don't think we're smart enough at that age to understand what it means.
I think that's a big part of it. Not smart, but also I was very thin and really high energy. So,
that
cold just
helped.
didn't enter into it.
Yeah.
So, but now I get cold much, much easier.
Yeah.
Much
You're right.
easier.
Yeah, Hawaii, you go out there and it's like
so
a warm,
you mean
it's a warm
this side of the
bathtub.
Pacific Ocean?
Yeah.
You've gotten in the Pacific Ocean in Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
Same ocean.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay.
But it's just here on the Oregon coast. Oh, boy.
No, it's nuts. And I'm really, it's interesting because occasionally you hear a story about how shark attacks are on the rise on the Washington, Oregon coast. And it's only because more and more people are surfing on the Washington and Oregon coast. It's not like there's more sharks.
Yeah.
They just have something to accidentally bite once in a while.
There's more bait.
There's more bait.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that always amazed me that I get it because the waves here must be amazing if you're a surfer. I've always thought that the way, when I lived in Southern California, I couldn't understand how this was a surf area. I was like, you don't have any waves here. Why is this such a big surf place?
Well, you got to find those spots along the Malibu coast, and there's a couple of places between Ventura and Santa Barbara that are pretty good. Where they have the breaks or whatever it is they call it. I'm not a surfer, so I don't know the terminology, but there are places where you see quite a few guys lining up out there, but they're not giant waves.
They're not,
But for surfers, they're just what they want, apparently.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense,
yeah.
Is there anywhere that you still want to go as far as RVing or have you checked everything off your bucket list in?
Oh, no.
years?
Locally, we are going to be spending more time back in the Eastern Oregon area, Christmas Valley, or the Blue Mountains and so on, because we love traveling that part of Oregon.
That's a beautiful area.
And I like shooting video back in places like Christmas Valley or east near Bend in that area, because people don't expect Oregon to look like that.
Right.
Keeping in mind that we have a national show that goes everywhere, and they see here we're out with the sagebrush and the obsidian mountain and pine trees and whatnot, and this is Oregon. This is just as much a part of Oregon as the wet side of the hills.
It's actually more.
Yeah, well,
right?
more.
It's 2/3 desert.
By space.
And
by square foot,
area.
square miles.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
By area.
But Oregon, we want to get up to back up to the Olympic Peninsula, which is a great place to go. Places up in Canada that I've been on business trips, but I just haven't spent much time there. And we are in the process of purchasing. You asked if we owned an RV earlier, and I was saying that I didn't have to because of all the road testing. We are looking at buying one that's a 4-wheel pop-up camper, which is a lightweight truck camper that folds down to a low profile, so it's fun and easy to drive, and you get to the destination, the top pops up easily, and you got plenty of room inside. And that was going to be our first owned RV. But that's a nice one because it fits on a truck, and it's easy to just load a little bit of perishables in there and take off for the weekend or longer.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting, because I always thought owning a big RV would be a lot of work, and that makes sense to me, to have a much smaller unit that's easy to do. We have neighbors that aren't home today that have a pretty big trailer, but I believe they're retired and they spend a lot. They'll leave for weeks, months at a time, and just live in their trailer somewhere.
That's a great way
really
to do it. Yeah. Well, it's like that trip to Alaska was. I think we left Oregon left Indiana on June 20th or 21st, and we arrived in Anchorage on July 4th. And that was the longest consecutive period of time that I'd ever spent in any one RV. But it's it gives you a taste of what it's like to be a full-timer, for example.
Right.
Because you just, we would drive until we found a cool place to stop, and then we knew we had a deadline of the 4th or the 5th up there because of a media event we had that we were attending. But otherwise, you just, you just tow that thing along until you find a cool-looking campground, and hopefully it's one that doesn't have too many mosquitoes up there, which everything that anybody has ever heard about mosquitoes and bugs in Alaska and the Yukon is absolutely true. But, or worse.
Or worse.
But this little one, it has all the features of a big RV, but it's smaller and a little bit easier to maintain and take care of. So that's going to be, the next big project, so to speak.
That's always been, seems like the setback in my mind, is the amount of care that a lot of RVs can take.
Well,
they're a bit like a boat.
Yeah. But they take some maintenance and so on. But it's kind of like having a hot tub. Before I owned a hot tub, I had this mental image of constantly doing chemicals and water changes and just filters and constant effort, and it really isn't bad.
No, it's wonderful.
It's nowhere near as bad as I would have imagined. And the value of having that thing out there to jump in the evening before going to bed and just relaxing has been tremendously therapeutic and good for us.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. We don't have one here, but we lived in a rental in Los Angeles, and when we moved there, there was a built-in hot tub. It was actually on the back porch in the ground, so it was very old, and it was empty. No one had touched it, and so we just assumed it didn't work. So it sat there for a while, and then one day we went, well, what happens if we fill it up with water? I was living with a couple other bandmates, and so we filled it up with water, turned on this giant concoction that made it go. It had a whole, enclosure that made the jets work.
Yeah.
It's not like the modern day ones.
Yeah.
But sure enough, it worked. And then after those roommates moved out and my girlfriend moved in, we got rid of the chlorine and we put bromide in it. Oh, and then it was heaven. Then it was heaven because it didn't smell at all and easy to take care of. Yeah. Much easier than chlorine to keep a balance. So yeah, nothing like having a hot tub.
Yeah. It's one of the best investments in your health and well-being that you can possibly make in a home, I think. And it certainly worked out that way for us.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. My brother-in-law is having his hot tub re-roofed. So, he had a whole house, but they did the hot tub as well. He has one that, he's in Bellingham, so he has a little, it's like a gazebo over the hot tub.
Yeah, our house was built in '89, and when we had to replace the rear deck because it was rotting away, plus it was really poorly designed, I was standing out there and bouncing up and down on the half-rotten boards. We replaced the deck, and were able to buy a used hot tub at a screaming deal at the time. And so we built both the deck for the deck and the hot tub, and I've got roofs over both of them. So you can go from the house into the hot tub without being out in the rain or the snow.
Without being out. And that's nice.
Well, I know there are people who say, I want to have my hot tub out in the open air because I want to feel the rain on my face. Fine, you can feel the rain on your face. I can see the rain about 2 feet away near the edge of the roof, and we're up in the hills, in the South Hills area, and when the occasions when we do have snow, I take little pocket flashlights, and I set the flashlights out on the ground, pointing straight up, leaning up against a rock or something. So when the snow is falling, the lights are shining straight up. They're not lighting anything up except the snowflakes coming down. So we can sit there in the hot tub and look out there and watch this snow falling, and it's nice. But the roof is mandatory in my opinion.
Oh, I see. It is. It's paradise sitting out in the snow in the hot tub. I do like sitting without a roof and having the snow fall on you while it's hot, but I totally understand having a roof. It's way less maintenance.
Yeah.
It's way less
plus,
to do.
We have
we
have the towels over here, and where do those get wet when you got no roof? It just works out well for us anyway.
Yeah.
And it's right next to the door to our lower downstairs guest bedroom. So when company stays over, we say, and by the way, you open the door here, here's the hot tub. So
that's nice.
It's handy.
You must get a lot of guests.
Yeah, occasionally.
I would think. All right, well, I think I'm going to wrap it up now. We're almost, we've been talking for a little bit. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
It's been fun.
Good.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. This has been a great conversation, and as my podcast grows, I'll get better and better at it. But it's been really great having you. This has been Jeff Johnston on Were You Still Talking? And we will be back soon, hopefully with someone who has hiked half of the Pacific Coast Trail. All right, thank you for listening, and be good to each other.